There are more ways to celebrate than ever before at the Jeep Celebration event. Hurry in for great deals today on the only brand that lets you go anywhere and do anything. And now financing get $2,500 total cash allowance on the purchase of a 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee WK Laredo 4x4. Don't miss this great offer. Hurry into the Jeep Celebration event today. Financing for qualified buyers through Chrysler Capital. Not all buyers will qualify. Residency restrictions apply. Must take retail delivery by 5/2/22. Jeep is a registered trademark.
Hi there, I am Adam Kirbas. This is another episode of my podcast. This is a warm July day in Ordu in Turkey. We are still in the pandemic. I hope you all are doing fine. Yesterday I did not make an episode. Yesterday it was Sunday and I decided to some sort of take or make a break every Sundays. I think it's not it's not bad just to relax at one day in a week and then start freshly into the new week through Mondays, which I think is not and we will therefore here we are. However, today we will continue. I think privileges, we only talked about the first part, and in the end we came to the conclusion that privileges work a lot of barriers, and that these barriers determine access to resources. This is what we said is very important. Privileges are not something, of course, something people perceive, assume, and so on, but nevertheless, privileges are always something about resources. This is not fiction. Those barriers, they have to be fathomable. Those barriers, they are historic, and therefore privileges are historic barriers which include and exclude people from access to certain resources according a special characteristic they either have or do not have, and therefore create an historic understanding of a distinction, especially a distinction of naturalism or a distinction of a natural distribution of resources in a society, which then has an effect on social and power relationships in a society. I mean, this is what we said is very crucial, because barriers, this is where we can determine privileges, because this is where you can really make concrete one privilege, because privilege is indeed a very dangerous, or in a way a very talked about topic, and according to some people privileges is everything. Well, if you declare privileges as everything, then you cannot fight them. It is very important in a society, especially in a society based on merits, that you exactly have to identify those barriers, and those barriers, of course, have to be unfair. The access or the inclusion and exclusion of those barriers, this is something we did not say, but some sort of this implies that inclusion and exclusion is not based on merits but on superficial characteristics, which are for many not justifiable. I mean, one thing we will talk about is gender, but as well as some sort of divinity and so on. This is, I think, very important that those privileges are in a way historic, and that they are not based on merit. So that we have to say that these inclusions and exclusions, that they are unfair. I mean, we talked a lot about feminism, but nevertheless we will some sort of briefly talk about it again. I mean, feminism, this is the separation between man and woman according to their biological sex, according to their physical appearance. This is very important. The barrier has to be visible or in a way founded in reality so that we can really talk about privileges, because this it would lead into nowhere or into an open sea if we would some sort of talk about presumed or assumed beings or circumstances, and then would derive from that any privileges whatsoever or any disadvantages. I mean, of course, what I'm talking about is transsexuality and so on. I mean, whether, and this question whether if you can really call yourself a woman or a man or whatsoever, if it is not founded in your genes, if it is not founded in your biology. However, I mean, these are all issues, but what we are talking about, and I some sort of made it clear through my argumentation, is that I am here rather, that I am in this gender discussion following Simone de Beauvoir, this French philosopher, which I think pretty much understood it. I mean, and I think generally in French philosophy, people have a more positive view on sexuality, not only on male sexuality, but as well as on female sexuality. And I still think that, or I'm, and there is a lot of research supporting that a healthy sexuality is important for your mental and physical well-being. However, what we have talked about are barriers, and those barriers we will identify as well. I mean, these barriers were clear. One clear barrier was that women were not allowed to vote. This is a clear barrier, and this was determined by the sex, by gender. This was rather assumed. I mean, there are many reasons or explanations why the women did not vote. One explanation was that her man or her husband would know what she would vote for, or that she should rather vote for men, or another was that women would not know anything about politics, were in that sense naive, and so you could not let them vote. The same happened then later with blacks in North America and so on. So there was a clear barriers, and as well barriers like having not equal rights. These are still to this very day. I mean the gender pay gap is not rather a barrier, because the gender pay gap, which gives women less pay for the same work. I mean, this is indeed a disadvantage, but this is not a barrier. A barrier would be mean, or a clear barrier would mean that more men become CEOs or heads of companies, or in politicians, because of an innate structure, or because of a male-dominated structure within a society which bars women actively from obtaining higher positions. I mean, this is what we are talked about, and I referred to those who wanna read more about this with the word intersectionality. It is indeed a very interesting topic. This is about how women are being disadvantaged in institutions and so on. And there's of course a lot of literature, but we have to be aware of one thing, that there's a barrier, and the gender pay gap is a disadvantage, but not a barrier. But then in extension of this, that women are actively barred from getting or obtaining higher jobs and so on. These are the barriers, or that women in some countries around the world have not even the same rights as man, and so on. So, and this has of course its natural foundation in the society. This is how we deal with or that women then placed in under certain circumstances, and you could say that women, we said it, that they're one influence, or you would say an indirect effect of this barrier is that women still do not seek male occupations or consider it male occupations, and this because of this assumption or this belief that they would not be as smart as men and would then not be able to keep up and so on, so that there is this belief where which still plays in the minds of everyone, and then some sort of still is responsible for this power relationships in the society. I mean, Foucault said a very interesting thing that those power relationships, that they are written in your own body, and this is what later other post-structuralists then took over and so on. So this plays indeed a very important issue, especially how you believe. The next barrier I detected was financial. I mean, this is indeed, you have to be some sort of questionable, because we made, or I introduced 4 barriers. No, it was 5 barriers. And financial, I separated from religion as well as from aristocratic. I mean, these are in one category. I separated because I think that financial privileges are not only a bit difficult to fathom, but as well as they work differently, in that sense that money, especially if we consider inclusion and exclusion, this means that everyone who has money has access, or is and those who do not have are barred from it. I mean, it is true indeed that, and we have pretty much detailed statistics which show who has the most money or who owns most of the money within a society. This is true, but financial privileges do not really arose from a racial disparity or whatsoever. This is really everyone who has access or or has the money has access to special entrances and so on. Think about colleges and so on. I mean, this is indeed, especially in the US as well, this is indeed an issue about money, even despite the fact of this recent college admission scandal. Nevertheless, you could say, I mean, it is of course about merits, but as well as it is about money, and this is, I think, that we have to separate it from religious as well as aristocratic privileges, because religious and aristocratic privileges is not about your financial means, and with financial privileges, I mean that is really about money. This is about the wealth you have. This is really opens you doors, and these doors, they are not open to everyone, and others are barred from this. Nevertheless, I mean, there is one very famous smelling saying, and this said that money does not smell. So this means that everyone who has money, no matter he is Asian, white or black, has access to these resources, or can walk through those barriers where others cannot. I mean, in order to understand what is meant for this, I mean, we could easily say this. For example, the having access or owning a special good. This is what has been made in the economics, or simple economics. I mean, if you want to be, or if you want to make your good, or product valuable, the smartest way to do is do not produce it en masse, but only make a few of them, and you will see that this raises the value of an object. This is what's been done with sport cars. For example, there are only a few made of sport cars, and people somehow collect them, and because they are rare, because not everyone has access to them, that's why they are valuable. So goods which bars others from having them. Or another thing is having expensive wine. There are some wines there are some wines around the world which sell, 1 or 2 million dollars a bottle. They're unbelievable. Nevertheless, you know that this is not, or that the taste or unique taste of this wine is not only the sole determinant why this wine is so expensive, because and that others are barred from it, because one of the reasons why it is so, that the unique taste, assumably, I do not drink so much wine, however, but one of the reasons why it is so valuable, this unique taste, is because others cannot appreciate it, and so on. You see these wearables, and this is really access about wealth. This is everyone who has money can buy these products. This is not about a social background here. Financial barrier is not about meant in a social sense, because then this is what we will talk later, especially in race. But here is money really meant everyone who has access to this can buy this, and we already know that, for example, in China we have a very wealthy class, as well as the middle class in China is even bigger than the Austrian, and they buy as well as they buy wealthy goods as well. So this is not about race whatsoever. This is really about access. Or think about private schools for our children. We in a way pay, or some pay for them to have a good education. Of course, there were scandals as well. The last scandal was about Jeffrey Epstein, who worked in one of these private schools. However, in general, I would not say that private schools are bad, or for that sense, because I know how school is in an ordinary school, despite the fact it was in rural Austria. Don't make a mistake about it. Schools in Europe, especially in continental Europe, and then in rural Austria, you cannot compare these schools. For example, with schools in North America, in black neighborhoods. This is indeed, there are indeed worlds between them, because people in schools in black neighborhoods, these are really schools of hoods and so on. These are schools which do not have even the basics, not even the necessity. We had this, truth be told. I did not grow up in a hood or something else. I don't know what this life of a hood is. I read it in sociological reports and watched movies. However, nevertheless, in ordinary schools, you have to attend people from lower classes. This does not mean that these people are stupid or whatever, but it is, again, statistics that a lower income correlates with people having loose family structures, or have some sort of toxic family structures. And in ordinary schools, you will most certainly have to deal with problem child, or with more violence whatsoever. Whereas in private schools, this does not mean everything. But however, in a private school, assumably the education is better. People are chosen according to their merits and so on. Whereas on public schools, there are mostly people work who don't want to work and so on. These are people or teachers, for example, who are not well educated or do not have this special education and. So this is indeed a big issue, and I'm not saying that public schools would all be bad or so whatsoever. I myself experienced public schools. It was not bad. It only turned out later as bad. However, it may be indeed smart to send your child in a private school as well. Of course, and then you have to be this tuition fees, this affordable, where it is affordable and not. And then, we know this from Great Britain as well as from the US, that people in those private schools, they then have special connections and bonds with others, which are later vital to create businesses and so on. So that you have to think of private schools like the creation of an elite of a country, and so in that sense it always works with exclusion. There was a scandal in France a couple of years. This was when still François Hollande was president in France, and there you could see some sort of the entire French political elite went to one class. This was this elite class in France. I have forgotten the name. However, this was a big scandal. There was the who is who from there back then, from the French political elite, Ségolène Royal, Dominique de Villepin, and so on. So a lot of people attended there, and they then had very influence in the French society. And another privilege is what we talked about. This is religious aristocratic, and these privileges rather work with the notion of purity and of divinity, not so much with money, but it is really about some sort of a God-given order and the structure, especially in the West, with blue or having blue blood, and here in the Islamic world being a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. But then as well as in India, think of India in the caste system. You are born in a caste and you cannot change it, and there are upper caste and lower caste. This determine your profession. This determines your friends, whom do you marry, and so on. But this is for all privileges the case, because your privileges of course determine with whom you socialize, like we talked before in your school, but as well as your religion. Because imagine if you are in the US or and so on, and if you are a Protestant, then you will rather socialize with other Protestants, and if you're a Catholic, and you will rather socialize with other Catholics. So religion plays a crucial role as well. But however, with these religious and aristocratic privileges, there comes an entitlement. This is in some aristocracies with the owning of land. You own the land, you have a special title which then entitles you to only learn Lord, Count, and whatsoever. This again some sort of cement this this holiness or in the caste system. I mean, whether your position in the social ladder or in the Islamic world. This is rather very striking in the Shia world also. In Shia Islam, this is the Sayyids and as well as Sayyidas, so the women are being acknowledged as well. These are descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, and they are treated specially or holy, whatever, as divinity, and this comes with certain privileges, of course. I mean, in the generally the European aristocracy, they have some sort of an ethos, or if you want a pathos, how to conduct themselves. This is what you see in a way. I mean, what sociologues, what the sociology wrote about and talked about, it was, I mean, these people have special manners which prove or would prove that you were cultivated and so on. I mean, this is very striking for the aristocracy in Europe. Well, this is not the case in the Islamic world with the Sayyids and Sayyidas. I mean, if you only watch how some of them conduct themselves, especially here in the society, this is indeed very questionable, and it reflects badly on the religion and so on. However, I mean, I talked about this lengthy, and I spoke my mind about it. I mean, this is indeed a big issue, especially here in Turkey, and some of these sites, they are just plainly audacious. This is what you have to say, and they do not deserve respect. I mean, you should not respect someone who didn't do anything, who lives off other people. This does not, or this is not in the Quran or whatsoever. And of course, if you walk the streets and announce to everyone that you are a descendant of a prophet, this means not that you are some sort of have a check blanche to do whatever you want, but this of course comes with obligations. This of course comes with some sort of principles, and that you supposedly should be a role model for your family and for your ancestor. However, this is what these people somehow have not realized, and this is, I would say, thank God, only in the Shia religion the case. I mean, what people always forget about the discussion whether Iran has nuclear weapons or not. This is rather, you should ask yourself, has Iran indeed a very favorable society structure which you can live with, and so on, because this is really an archaic and really backward, in a way, aristocracy which has or just does not care about values, moral principles, and so on. I mean, these are people obviously who are not wanna be role models. However, what we wanna talk about is political privilege, which are a bit difficult to define. I mean, the difference with political privileges are that they are not hereditary. This means that they are rather, you have to understand them, momentary, and they mostly, but this is actually not so in reality. This is mostly they end with when someone ends the office. I mean, think about parliamentarian immunity. This immunity is a special privilege which normally ends with the end of the office or with you leaving a political party and so on. So it is rather temporary. It is something normally, normally if you live in a democratic society, normally, which is not inherited, nevertheless, it is very common. This is what many people actually in the past did, that they used their political offices for the advantage, even if you want or do not want it, because you're, as a politician, or if you hold office, let's say you hold office in the financial ministry or the financial department or whatever, then you have access to knowledge where other people may not have, and this knowledge then after your political career or after your career as a bureaucrat, you can use for your advantage. This does not mean this is not all about illegal stuff. Nevertheless, a lot of things happened illegally, and with this there comes, of course, a lot of issues. But don't make a mistake about it. Of course, some political immunities or privileges are very important for a society to work. Especially for parliamentarian immunity, if it is used correctly, this is rather being considered some sort of a protection, especially a protection as for a representative who is or could be threatened by the majority or could be cornered by the majority. This person has an immunity, because this is what pretty much happens very often if you are some sort of on the wrong side of the road, or if you are being hated for your beliefs or whatever, then people used to start some false trials for and so on, or you are being indicted wrongly. This happens very often. This happened to me. If people hate you for whatever reasons, then they will try to use those institutions against you. So in that sense, especially if you are a minority representative in a parliament, whatever, then it makes indeed sense that you have some sort of immunity. But nevertheless, this immunity does not mean that you should pursue criminal conduct like attempted murder or breaking into someone's homes and so on. This would be a misunderstanding. This is where we have to clearly draw the line, so you cannot use this immunity, or it goes past its purpose when you use your immunity, political immunity, to try to assassinate people or hamper and tinker with the law, or even destroy someone's lives and whatsoever, just for the sake you can. This is, of course, wrong. This is something which has nothing to do with reality. But in our case, political privileges can as well as go beyond the sheer political aspect. Think about this. Is what's happening in Austria, for example. There was a scandal where politicians would get cheap houses and so on, or would have special contracts. Think of some politicians who buy homes very cheaply and so on, get special offers, special deals. Of course, your popularity and so on contributes to that as well, or your knowledge, because you happen to work in a department and so on, and you oversaw it and so on. And of course, the most evident point of this political privileges are, especially if you're when it comes to one's families. I mean, this is what is happening actually very often. So that if one politician or bureaucrat makes it, he tries to immediately install his family members or friends into the apparatus. I mean, this can be, in one hand, trust. I mean, you want to, especially in politics, you cannot trust anyone, and hopefully you can trust your own family, but this is not always the case. So they always bring in family members and so on. But what we talked about the last time was some sort of a social immunity. This is besides the legal immunity. This means a social immunity would mean that a politician or a political person in public does something wrong which is not illegal in terms of law, but rather morally controversial or indeed very questionable. I mean, this can be if you are a leftist or a socialist and so on, and then you act racially, or you take part in racial slurs, even in racial lynchings and so on, but yet your peers, your political party members, however, excuse your behavior. It is excusable for, as well, in one hand, as part of a group identity, everything is allowed as long as it helps to smash the enemy. This is, especially in the politics, very important. It is always about winning against other people, destroying other people, smashing other people, but as well as it can be considered some sort of as no big deal because this person is allegedly known or part of a special group and so on. I mean, of course, this happened in Austria as well, as that some politicians were so controversial that you actually did not know their real mindset, and then later when they came in power, especially when they had real power, this became really scary. So this means, as well as this social immunities, as well as a cover up, so that you then do not know what is really going on. And the last privilege I wanna talk about is racial. This is I wanna talk about it in the last sector, not because it is not important, or quite the contrary. It is the most important issue, and it is the most talked about issue right now in society and so on. But if we would start with it, then it would be some sort of dominating, because it is so important. It is a political cleavage. This means that it is well known in the society. It is some sort of conflicted and highly debated in the society, and this is of course that of course some people are excused or have access to special resources according to their skin color. Again, for this we have very evident statistics. Statistics show that, for example, in North America, people with a black skin color have over proportionally low income, as well as they live in special areas, and that they even have no access. Also, that is even written some books about it, so that there is a clear barrier that people who do not have, or for people with black skin color, that they are barred from moving into some neighborhoods and so on, so that some sort of white people, especially in North America, would create an enclave in order to protect themselves, to protect themselves from any migrants and whatsoever. And this, of course, is with the understanding that some people are just inferior. I mean, especially in Austria and Germany, it is always that it is there you have this presumption that migrants, especially migrants from the Middle East, I am from the Middle East, that migrants from the Middle East, that they would not contribute anything to the German culture, and that they would be rather undermine it. But then if migrants really accomplish something in the German culture, this is rather contributed to Germans, to Austrians, to white people, whereas all what's been considered as bad, even if it is among white people and so on, this is always contributed to migrants. So if a migrant some sort of contributes something to this culture, this is immediately whitewashed. So white people claim these accomplishments for themselves, and whereas everything that's been bad or is not undesirable is been attributed to foreigners, because in Germany as well as in Austria, the societies indeed, especially migrants, are separated in desirable and undesirables, and those who are desirables, some way they are Christian, they are assimilated and of course subordinated. This is very important, because this is what I experienced in Austria, for example, that those Austrians, they grow up with the notion that migrants and all especially from the Middle East or Africa or whatsoever, that they are subordinated to them, that they are inferior to them, and there it is this natural order that the Austrian or German should always be in the lead. And this made it, for me, for example, very difficult to work with Austrians and German, because they always thought that they would be my superior, that I would be the one who needs help and so on. I mean, this is what they always say. So in that sense, this and it had some dire consequences. I mean, this is when Austrians they had this force always to pretend that they were my superiors. I mean, they always would run around and dress up as whatever you think, and then stand in front of you and pretend that they would be your superior, because so that they can assure themselves that their world is still in peace, or that their world is still fine, so that they can live with themselves and so on, so that this Aryan race is still in power. This Aryan race is still in charge. This was indeed the case in the university. This was the case among leftists. So this was not all far right and so on. This was really within the left. So that always this white leftist elite, they always had to be in charge. They always put themselves about migrants. They needed this, and you could see when they did not get what they want, then they would all become very violent, aggressive, and then would do every kinds of stuff. This was one of the reasons why I was called arrogant, or that I would not show respect. This actually meant not showing respect. Actually meant that I would not care about this perceived natural order of Austrians and Germans who are or should be above me, and that I should subordinate myself to them. However, this was my podcast today on this hot July day in Turkey, although I hope you are doing fine in this pandemic and stay safe. Bye.
It's finally time to start firing up the grill. From city to shore, Acme is everything you need to prep for this summer season. Download the Acme app to shop for this season's essentials any way you want. Open the Acme app, clip your deals, then order your items online. An experienced Acme associate will carefully select your groceries, bag your order, and bring it right to your car or deliver right to your door. Download the app or visit acmemarkets.com for program details.